Hi everyone, welcome to today's I was gonna say One Card Wonder Wednesday, but it's Tuesday, it's Update Tuesday. I'm gonna pull up my video here to make sure I'm showing everyone what I want you to see on my desk here. Hopefully I'm not all over the place. Perfect, it doesn't look too crooked, it's not too bad. All right, so we're gonna use the Snowman Season stamp set. It is part of the Let It Snow suite. And it is such a fun suite. I don't know if you have it, but it's fantastic. You need to get it if you don't. So here is the card we are going to make today. This is a card that Stampin' Up! Emailed to us demonstrators this morning in their Succeed Weekly email. And I just call this my Update Tuesday post. Hi Fran, how are you? I'm glad you're joining. It is a super fun card to make. So I'm just gonna get right into it. Let's get started. Because it takes a little bit of time for this one. So the first thing I had to do is I took a piece of thick Whisper White and using the stitched framelits dies, take this large circle die and die cut that circle out from your piece of Whisper White. Now I will have all the measurements on my blog shortly after the video, just so you know, but right now I'm just gonna tell you what kinds of cardstock I've got going on. So we've got a regular piece of Whisper White, and now I'm just gonna take a tiny piece of washi tape if I can find the end of it, and I want to just tape down just a little piece on the corner, just a little piece on this corner, because you don't want to tape too much, because I taped too much earlier and it ripped my paper, so you don't want to tape too much. But you're just going to lay this mask over it. And now if your mask rips, you don't really have to worry about that too much. I'm using it one time and one and done, just because I'm using it for sponging with the pool party, and also using the shimmery embossing paste. Once you use that embossing paste, it has embossing paste on it, so I'm just taping it down good. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is take a Stampin' sponge and your pool party ink, and we're going to start by sponging. Now get it inked up pretty good, and always start off your paper like this so you don't have, and then work your way onto your paper. Now I can see my tape has already come off on the corner, so I want to make sure I hold this steady while I'm sponging. And I can already see I've got it darker than my first card, which is great because it needed to be a little bit darker. Although the first card didn't turn out too bad, but you can see, look at, I'm kind of a little bit all over the place with my sponging, but that's all right. It's going to have the stencil over top of it in just a minute. Now this polka dot stencil is from the new basic stencils that are in the holiday catalog. So just lay this over top, and again, use some of that washi tape to tape it down. And now this you definitely do not want moving at all, because, and you know, once you tape it, and then just hold it in place as well. Because if you move it, then your little polka dots or whatever pattern you're doing is going to be all over the place. Now this is the, I'm going to take that edge off. This is the shimmery white embossing paste. Sorry, not powder. Embossing paste. And as you can see, it has a lot of sparkle in it. It's fantastic. You don't need very much. I'm just mixing it up a little bit to show you. So just put a little bit on one of your spatulas, and I'm going to hold my paper down at the same time as I'm holding this mask down. And you're just going to go over top of where that circle is. And you can see it when you're up close. You may not be able to see it from where you're at, but I can tell where the circle is cut out. And then just scrape back into, get it down in there as far as you can. If you have too much up on the top like that, it will dry out on those edges. But I opened this a long time ago, and it is still very, very wet. So I'm really impressed with that shimmery embossing paste. So go ahead and take your tape off, take your mask off. Look at those polka dots. They're fantastic. Now, what I'll have to do afterwards is I'm going to just wash that with some warm soapy water, and it'll take that paste right off. The sooner you wash it, the better, but obviously I'm not going to get to it right now. So now I'm going to take my mask off, and I probably could use this mask again if I just let that dry. So maybe I'll just set that aside and maybe use it again. But now I've got to just take that little piece off the edge. I'm going to set this over here so it dries. It won't take too long to dry, but it will take a few minutes, but we've got some other steps that we need to do, so it's not that big of a deal. So one of the steps that we're going to do is we are going to use basic black cardstock and go over it with your embossing buddy, because now we're going to heat emboss, not use embossing paste. And all we need is the Merry. We don't need the Christmas. So, I mean, if you stamp a little bit of Christmas, that's fine. So just stamp it in the Versamark ink. Put that Whisper White embossing powder or white embossing powder, whatever you want to call it, over the top. And like I said, we only need Merry. Oops. Oh, hopefully I didn't mess it up. I did. Okay, as you can see, when I flipped it over, it took a little bit of that embossing powder off, so just sprinkle it one more time. Put it right back on there. Perfect, because it's still wet enough. I'm going to put the lid back on this so I don't knock it over, because I've been knocking things over all day long every time I go to do something in my craft room. Like, I have dropped stamp sets, I have dropped markers, I've pretty much dropped everything today, so... All right, I'm going to turn the heat tool on, let it heat up. Of course, it's a little loud, so I'm sure you'll hear it. But then I'm going to just hold my paper down, and we're going to heat that up and melt that embossing powder, which it's so awesome once you see it melt, and it's hard for you to see because I'm trying to hold it maybe so you can see it as it melts. But I don't know if you can really see it or not. But as it melts, you'll see it will change from that powdery look to just a smooth, shiny look. And that's how you know it's done. Now, sometimes when you're melting it, if you don't have enough embossing powder in some spots, it'll look splotchy. And that's not a huge deal. Unless it really bothers you, I wouldn't worry about it. And now, for the card, this is fussy cutout. So I am going to show you how I did that. It is super easy, especially going around these letters. It was the M that they really fussy cut around. So I started at the top of the M, worked my way around to the bottom. So it's not too thin when you're starting on this part of the M. Because you don't want to cut this first and then try to cut everything else out. So start at the Y end of your word. I guess I could have gone around those letters at the top just a little bit more, and maybe I will here in just a second. And again, always move your paper, not your scissors. That is the key to good fussy cutting. And that's the hardest part when you have a thin piece like this. Trying to move your paper is not always the easiest, because it's not the easiest to hold on to maneuver it. And I should have, like I said, I should have cut these little sections first, and I didn't, but got them now. There we go. So now we have our Merry cut out. We're going to take a scrap piece of Whisper White, and we will stamp that little snowman. We're going to use Memento ink for him. So we have 2 parts of our card done already. We're just going to stamp him in Memento. Let him dry for a few seconds before we color with the Stampin' Blends. Now, another step that I've already done is I cut out a piece of the Let It Snow Designer Series paper, and that is the same length as your Whisper White piece here. And we're going to layer that under it in a minute. Let's go ahead and use Real Red Dark, and we're going to color in his hat and his scarf, and then we'll use some Pool Party as well, because those are the 2 colors that are in that Designer Series paper, is the Real Red and the Pool Party. Sorry, I need to take a drink. I feel like my throat is dry for some reason. There we go. All right. And of course I stopped at Chick-fil-A today, so I have some nice iced tea to drink, and it's delicious. I probably shouldn't be drinking it because it'll probably keep me awake. The smaller stripes like this I did with the Pool Party, And I did the dark just because I wanted it to show up more. And then I did the little palm on the top of his hat. And then I used some pumpkin pie dark to do his little carrot nose. And that's pretty much it. Now, you could take Versamark and go over him and make him sparkly too. And I think that would be adorable. I just chose not to, just because I felt like there was enough sparkly on him. So I'm going to start up here with this arm, because we have to fussy cut him out too. And start by fussy cutting around those fingers. The fingers on the tree branch fingers. Because you want to do that first. Get that done. Because you don't want to do that at the end, because then it's too difficult to do. And you end up cutting his little arm off or whatever. So do the little fingers first. Get those done. And when you're doing those, you're obviously not moving the paper. You are moving your scissors because you're just doing little snips to get around those fingers. Come down around his little arm. And then this piece of cardstock needs to come off because it's getting in my way. And then just move your paper. Perfect to get around his little snowman body. And you don't really need the ground or that little tree that's on here. You just want the snowman. Hi Lois, how are you? So we'll just cut around his little body. Oh, no worries, Lois. You don't have to worry about being late. I was a little bit late too. I had a friend stop over. She needed to borrow something, so I was a couple minutes late myself. So then I'm just going to go around the hat, around those little palms. Get around his nose. And the last little bit here is going to be to do around this arm. So what I'm going to do first is go as close to the stick as I can and get that done. And then come in and do the rest of him, and then kind of just meet up with that piece where I cut there. And don't go quite all the way to the stick because you don't want to accidentally cut his arm off, but just get it close enough so you can just kind of break it off. The piece of paper, not the stick arm. Hi Karen, how are you? Thanks for joining. We'll cut around him. Again, do the same thing. Just come in just to where it's, actually I kind of got that. All right, so there we go. Got him cut out. He is super cute. I love that little snowman. And I love the whole scene with the little snowballs and whatever, but I love how this card turned out. So I'm really happy I did this. So now this is the Winter Knit embossing folder. Is what I use to emboss this piece of Pool Party. Isn't that fantastic? It just looks like a sweater. I love it. And then take your card base, fold it, give it a good crease. And then I just used snail adhesive to adhere this to the front of the card. Of course, like I always say, you can use the Tombow multi-purpose glue. I also think for this, because it is embossed, I'm going to use a little bit of extra snail adhesive, but it would also be a good idea if you wanted to use some tear and tape. That would work perfectly. So now our little snowman is flipped over. We'll turn Mary over and we'll go ahead and get some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back. I'm going to use mini Stampin' Dimensional for Mary, and I'm only going to put one, and I'll show you why in just a minute. And that's right over where the E is. And then I'm just going to use two of the regular dimensionals for the back of him. And then we're going to take this piece and right down one side of it, just run some adhesive, snail adhesive. And then this is going to stick down on the right hand side of the card. Get him on there. And then flip this over and we will add some dimensionals to the back of this. And you're going to need quite a few because you don't want it to sag anywhere. So I would use like 9. 3 in the middle, 3 across the top, and 3 across the bottom. Perfect amount. You could use, for this card I actually had some leftover edging from where I used dimensionals. I cut those and used them, and those worked out just perfectly as well. but I say about 9 is probably good. Now that embossing paste is dry now, so it really doesn't take that long to dry because it's a very thin layer that you put on there. And if you use your heat tool on it, you can dry it faster. I just prefer just to let it air dry on its own. So that's why I just did it that way. So then now you have your card front. You're going to put this on a little angle. Make sure all your oh my gosh, Stampin' Dimensionals are stuck down. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not coming out. Stick your little snowman on here. And then peel that off, the backing on that dimensional. And then I took just a little drop of, you could use Tombow, whatever you want, but I just used the Shimmery Crystal Effects because I love how it works as a glue. And then that Y where you put that little drop goes right onto that snowman, so that'll keep it stuck down so it won't get pulled back by accident when you're moving the card around or whatever. So now from the Nature's Twine, this is a 4-pack of twine. There is a mint macaron. And I used that to make the bow. Now in the photo that Stampin' Up! Provided for us, it was a red baker's twine bow. Well, we don't sell red baker's twine, so I'm assuming what they did was they took the Whisper White baker's twine and colored it with their Stampin' blends, and that's great. I just didn't want to do that. I thought this looked just as pretty with this mint macaron twine as it did with that real red colored baker's twine, so I just went with the mint macaron because it matches really nice. I like how it looks with this. So now that you have your bow, go ahead and put a glue dot on it and kind of curl that glue dot up just a little bit. You're going to stick your bow right here next to your snowman. And of course, when it goes in the envelope, your little tails will be kind of pulled in. That one's still a little bit long. I'm going to cut him just a little bit. But all those little tails will go in the envelope. It's not a big deal if they stick off the card right now. Take another piece of Whisper White for the inside. And we are going to stamp a sentiment as soon as I find my sentiment that I already stamped with earlier. Ta-da! Valerie's desk is a mess right now, just so you know. We are going to use Memento ink. And we are going to use, we already used the Merry from the Merry Christmas, and I wanted to use the Hoping This Season Builds Heartwarming Memories for the inside. And I just don't see my stamp anywhere. I've got my snowman. I don't see my block. So we're just going to open up the stamp set. Maybe I put him back in there. Maybe I didn't. Nope, I didn't. It's here somewhere, but I don't see it. So we are going to pretend we stamped that. And then when I find the stamp, I will stamp it, I promise. And like I said, here's what it is supposed to say. Hoping the season builds heartwarming memories. This is the joy of live stamping. Sometimes you misplace an item. Like I said, I had a friend come over that needed something. I got up from my desk and I probably took it probably was in my hand, and it's probably sitting in my kitchen right now because she had to borrow something from the kitchen. So my stamp is probably in there because it's not here on my desk where you would think it would be. So that's it. That is today's Update Tuesday. What do you think of this card? Let me know if you like it. Give me some hearts. Give me some love. Share the video. Have a watch party. Show your friends. Teach them how to make it. I'm going to post it on my blog in just a little while with all of the measurements and the written instructions. So if you want to pop over there later, do that. Check it out. That is stampinwithvalerie.com. And I will put the link to the blog post on a post here on my VIP page and on my business page in just a little while, as soon as I get my video downloaded to YouTube and get it all ready to go. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's Update Tuesday. I will be back again tomorrow night with a One Card Wonder Wednesday. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. I appreciate you stopping in to watch me. I live and love to inspire you. Have a great evening. Bye.